Lesson 5.1 is on rates and ratios. There are three main definitions and ideas that we will talk about in this lesson, and that is a ratio, a rate, and a unit rate. So a ratio is a comparison of two quantities using division. Now there are three different ways to show a ratio. None of them are right, none of them are wrong. They're just different ways to show it. So if I'm going to compare the numbers 2 and 1, I could show it using the word 2. So a ratio, right? We're comparing two quantities, 2 and 1 in this case. So I'm comparing 2 to 1. Okay, so that's one way to show it. I could also show it as this semicolon. So that's another way you might see it. They mean the same thing, just looking a little bit different. So here I'm comparing 2 to 1 in this example. Or a fraction. That's another way to show a ratio, because I'm comparing two quantities using division in all three of these. I'm comparing 2 and 1. It can be with the word 2, the semicolon, or a fraction. Okay, so those all mean the same thing. Now a rate, okay, a ratio, so here's all examples of ratios of two quantities with different units. Okay, now the most common example is when we think about miles per hour. So I'm comparing miles and I'm comparing hours. Okay, so that is a ratio, a rate, because it's a ratio of two quantities with division. So like I said, yeah, miles to hour. Another example could be, price per 1 unit. Okay, so $6 for 2 pounds. Okay, so I'm comparing money to pounds. So those are different units. Okay, unit rate, a rate with the denominator of 1. Okay, so it's after you've divided it and broken it down. An example, I have $5 per pound, because this is with my denominator as 1, it's 1 pound. If this was any other number like 3 pounds, like $5 for 3 pounds, it wouldn't be a unit rate, because this second number, or the denominator, needs to be 1. Okay, so if I had 60 miles in 3 hours, is this a unit rate? It is not, because the denominator is not 1, it's 3 here. So what we would have to do is divide these, all right, 60 divided by 3, and get 20 miles per hour. Now, because this is a 1, right, per 1 hour, 20 miles per 1 hour is a unit rate, because my denominator is 1. All right, so some examples. You're going to be asked to find the product, write the ratio as a fraction in simplest form, and then find the unit rate today. When I find the product, well, product just means to multiply. Okay, so here's an example. 6 hours and $15 per hour. So an example, if you worked for 6 hours and you got $15 per hour, to figure that out, you just have to multiply. And in this case here, the 6 has a denominator of 1. This is basically like 1 hour, so your denominators are both 1, so you can just really multiply across. So all we have to do in this one is to take 6 times 15, and your answer, my product, is $90. So if you work for 6 hours for $15 an hour, you would get $90. Okay? All right, same type of example. 15 halves, which is kind of like 7.5 seconds, and they traveled 60 feet per second. So here my denominator is kind of like 60 feet per 1 second. I really just have a fraction times a fraction, 15 over 2 times 60 over 1. Okay, so what I would do is we would multiply these, and we want to look to cross reduce first. Can't 15 and 1, but 2 and 60, we can cross reduce 1 and 30. And then all we need to do now is to take 15 times 30, and our answer is 450. So that's how far we've traveled. If in 15 over 2 seconds, or 7.5 seconds, and we travel 60 feet per second, how far have we gone? We have traveled 450 feet, right? Going back to this, okay, your labels kind of cancel out too. So my hour and my hour canceled out, so that's why money was the only thing left over. Here, same thing. My seconds and my seconds kind of cross-reduce or cancel out as well. So all I have left now is feet, okay? So we've traveled 450 feet. All right, write the ratio as a fraction in simplest form. So these are all different ways to show ratios, right? But it does tell me to write it as a fraction, so my answer needs to be a fraction and it has to be in simplest form. Now, the first number will always go on top. Second number always goes on the bottom if it's set up side by side like either of these. So the ratio here is 42 to 28. So I set it up as a fraction. Now we just have to reduce it into simplest form. We need to divide both of these by 7. I should get 6 over 4, and I actually can reduce a little bit more here. And we can reduce those by 2, 3 over 2. So what I could have done is I could have reduced both of these by 14 right away to get 3 over 2. But there's many different ways to reduce it, right? But as long as we get 3 over 2, it just needs to be in a fraction, not a mixed number, okay? It needs to be in a fraction with ratios, okay? All right, now 14 to 12, we need to reduce. I can reduce both of them by 2. I get 7 over 6, and we leave it as a fraction, okay? Our job is to write the ratios as a fraction in simplest form. Here I have 20 dogs to 25 cats, so first part goes on top, second on the bottom. Let's reduce them by 5, 4 over 5. Dogs, cats. If there is a label, go ahead and put your label in your answers as well. So 4 dogs to 5 cats, reduced in simplest form, okay? And last example, find the unit rate. So what we have to do for unit rate is we just need to make sure the denominator is 1. So what we do on these is we divide, all right, kind of to reduce to get that denominator to be 1. So here I have 160 miles over 2 hours. This is not a unit rate yet because my denominator is not 1, okay? It is a rate right now, but it's not a unit rate. We are comparing two quantities with different units, but my denominator is not 1 yet. So we need to make it a unit rate. We got to reduce to get this denominator to be 1. So we can divide both of those by 2, okay? We have 80 miles in 1 hour. So my unit rate of 160 miles over 2 hours is 80 miles per hour. That's my unit rate. And last one, $100 for 25 square feet. So our job is to kind of figure out how much money we're spending on 1 square foot. So we just need to reduce. I can reduce both of these by 25. That's our best number to reduce by. I could also reduce them by 5. But I'm going to reduce by 25 and get to my answer right away. So 25 goes into 100 4 times. 25 goes into 25 once. So if I spend $100 on 25 square feet, that unit rate, breaking it down, is basically what you're spending on each square foot. You're spending $4 per 1 square foot. So that's our unit rate because I got my denominator to be 1. So those are the 3 different questions that they're going to ask you to solve today. Finding the product, write the ratio as a fraction in simplest form. Don't forget to reduce it to simplest form. And then find the unit rate, which you're basically just dividing and reducing down so the denominator can be 1. Okay? So your homework is on page 167. You're going to do 7 through 23 odds.